This man would be the Kaiser, and this would be his castle. In fact, the Hohenzollern Castle, perched on a southern German hilltop, still is. Today, George Friedrich is a private citizen with an unusual last name, Prince of Prussia. It's a title that comes with considerable wealth and a considerable burden. As the heir to his family's famous legacy, he's the public face of a legal battle started by his grandfather decades ago to reclaim a lost fortune of more than 10,000 historic items, from a simple coffee spoon to the orb and scepter of the first Prussian king and queen. Is this about the items themselves, or would you be just as happy to take a check?
No, if it was that easy, I think my ancestors would, for example, have sold this place, the Castle Hohenzollern. We would have sold our art collection, which we lent to Berlin and to Brandenburg and to other places in Germany.
After World War I, Germany's royal family lost its power but kept most of the fortune that came with it. But after World War II, when the Soviets occupied Eastern Germany, communist governments seized the private property of ordinary people, and of exiled royals too. In the 90s, 5 years after the fall of the Berlin Wall, Germany passed a law allowing anyone to reclaim property expropriated by the former communist government, with a very specific exception: anyone who gave substantial support to the Nazis. The law does not apply to the industrial giants like Volkswagen and BMW that supported the Nazis, but what about ex-royals? I wonder, are you familiar with this picture?
Yes, I've seen this picture before.
The photo is black and white, but the history behind it is many shades of gray. Taken in 1933, it shows Prince George's great-grandfather, Crown Prince Wilhelm, at a Nazi rally. There's video, too, from a similar event the same year. By then, the son of the last Kaiser had no position in government, only a place in high society.
I think these kind of pictures are making it so difficult for historians to assess his role, because these pictures are very strong, especially if you see the swastika on his arm. I think it always makes your breath stopping, and you ask yourself, why is he wearing that?
This is where it all gets complicated. Both Prince George and the history books point out that the Crown Prince had an ulterior motive: to restore the monarchy. Hitler could make that happen.
By this time, the Crown Prince lacked all the political influence in order to substantially contribute to the rise of the Nazi regime.
He had a cruel and brutal political morality, and he liked the look of Hitler. He was quite sympathetic with the Nazi party, but he didn't actually become a card-carrying Nazi.
Did he substantially contribute to the Nazi party?
Well, this is a very interesting question. When is a contribution substantial?
It's that question that Chris Clark and 3 other historians were asked to answer almost a decade ago to help determine if the family deserves compensation. Clark's original report, commissioned by the family, concluded that the Crown Prince supported the Nazis but lacked the public standing to give them a substantial boost.
This is a disempowered former prince. He was not widely respected. He was a playboy.
Adolf Hitler, closely followed by the Crown Prince.
But since then, Clark has seen new evidence that shows the Crown Prince was more influential than he originally thought.
That's what happens in history. We find out new stuff, we change our mind.
So you wouldn't write the same paper today?
No, if ever I ask, no.
Es geht dich, Georg Friedrich Prinz von Preußen.
The case has sparked a fierce debate in Germany and attracted plenty of public criticism, led by German comedian Jan Böhmermann. Much of what the ex-royals do still own is already on display in public museums: crowns, swords, and ornate tobacco boxes. And Prince George insists they will stay there, and so will the paintings and sculptures he wants back, even if they change hands.
I really strongly feel this cultural responsibility to contribute something to the country and to show these items to the public.
Their ownership will be determined by a precise legal and historical examination. But the case has struck a nerve with the German public, perhaps because there's also a moral question: how to judge the sins of our ancestors.
It's very hard to look at. I think it's as it is for every other German who sees his ancestors, and we Germans are questioning ourselves. How could something happen like the Third Reich and the Nazi regime and all the horrors that came with it?
If your great-grandfather contributed even in a small way to the rise of Hitler, isn't part of your family's fortune a pretty small price to pay?
I think that's something, as I said before, this is an issue all of us Germans have, because that is what the discussion is all about. Who contributed to the rise of the Nazi Reich? Was it the millions who voted for them? Was it people who went to rallies, or was it only the leading Nazi figures, or was it the heavy industry who funded the whole thing? We are not the reason for the discussion, so our claims and everything. I think we are kind of a symptom for the whole discussion, or the discussion that needs to take place.
The national discussion may not be over, but with the case headed toward a likely settlement, the legal one may soon be. Scott McLean, CNN, London.